And welcome to another episode of the Beach Court Podcast. On this week's episode, we're going to focus on breaking down the metagame and our tier list for the upcoming regionals in Germany and San Antonio, which is slated to be the largest regional ever. It's going to be crazy packed. I'm Eric Ridgway, joined as always by my good friends and co-hosts Maddox Corcoran and Parker Greenwald. Gentlemen, how you guys doing? You have a good weekend?
Yeah, fantastic, actually.
Yeah, and honestly, my week just got made so much better by that, clickbait worthy reaction from Parker on San Antonio being the largest regional. So anyone not watching us on YouTube, definitely tune in for the first minute just to see his face on that.
Typical YouTuber thumbnail right there.
Yeah, Maddox, you went to a cup this weekend. You also had a birthday. Congratulations on one more year around the sun. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I did go to a League Cup on my birthday. I played Maridon, and I did not have the generators charged with luck. Had a pretty tough round on the winning end. Played a friend from Jacksonville as well, so just a close set, but with had some big generator misses kind of throughout the set. But hey, that's the up and down nature of Maridon. But overall, still good to just go out and play every weekend, and looking forward to a double cup weekend in Jacksonville coming up right here.
Yeah, double cup weekend in Jacksonville. If you are from the area, come join us. Saturday at Nakama and Sunday at Coliseum Oakleaf. Coliseum Comics, if you don't know what that means. It's gonna be a good time. I heard you started 002.
I mean, yeah, but we don't need to talk about that. So no, I mean, the first one was kind of like a match against a buddy Chris, who's been tearing up the cups that we go to, and was the previous winner of this Gainesville Cup that we went to. So we had a tie. There was like, okay, no big deal, and then hit a Sable Zard, and just kind of had some weird matchups. Kind of had a weird board state at the end where it was both kind of like bricky on both sides, and just kind of ended up with a tie. But clawed it back to 202, and then almost pulled off the 302. Ended up with 212 to just miscut, but it's fine. It happens. We pick it up there. Tie less next time.
Tie less next time.
Yeah, we'll play faster and hit some more generators. Bro, if we're playing Maridon.
Next time you play Maridon, just like turn one, you whiff your generator, just concede immediately, go to game 2.
Yeah, probably at that rate, right? So
Parker, I know you haven't been playing as much. What you been up to, man? You've been playing online, watching some videos, or
definitely been keeping up with the streams and stuff. Haven't really been, like Eric mentioned, I haven't been, playing as much, but probably gonna be back Thursday playing locals.
Hey,
I don't know what I'll play. I'll probably play some like garbage or something, but like
he's gonna pull up Snorlax stall for sure.
No. I'm not playing. I want to have fun at locals.
Cloth Electrode, that's the fun deck.
True.
Yeah. This weekend I was in Delray Beach, had an unfortunate situation where I lost a bunch of Pokemon cards. So this is going to be fun building some decks this week. I don't know what the heck I'm playing either. Maddox and I went to the Jaguar game last night as well, here locally in Jacksonville, and Jags took a tough loss.
Duval.
Like you got to hold that U more, like Duval. Anyways, Reagan Retzloff, shout out.
Great. All of our Houston Texan fans all just canceled, unsubscribed from the podcast.
I'm totally fine with that, actually, and get them out of here.
Whoa.
No, listen. If you're listening to this and you met us in San Antonio a week and a half from now and you love the Houston Texans, please stay subscribed. It's okay. Houston's all right. Jacksonville's all right. We all just love Pokemon. We're just chilling.
Right. Yeah,
that's fair. But let's jump into our metagame discussion and kind of like just talk about cups and what's going on locally, what to play this weekend. We got a double cup weekend, and what are some good plays, going into Germany and going into San Antonio. How are you guys feeling about the metagame where it's at right now?
So I think your best bet at having a decent shot at a cup and regionals probably Maridon. Like it's just like you said, I think last time you played like 99% of your games, basically. You're like, unless you get path turn 1 or just open awful, like you're playing, you're Maridoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, just playing any deck that is going to be able to consistently play the game, especially if it's a best of 1 cup. Again, you only get so many, bad hands, bad starts that you can afford. And in some matchups, you're just straight up unfavored if you're going, second or going first, or you hit the wrong start against them. So, having something that you can play the game with consistently, get all 4, 5, 6 games out of your cup run to try to make top cut, that's really going to be key. And also, I mean, play a deck that's ready for Guardy. Again, there's gonna be Guardy. It's the most popular deck right now. In a best of one, a lot of people will play it, just saying, hey, I have time for one game. And if your deck, cannot beat Guardy or falls over to Guardy, then definitely be careful about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Maridon seems like it's definitely getting towards the top of the tiers, and we'll get into that later. But like Rapid Strike starting to make a comeback, which is favored into Maridon usually. Charizard Pidgeot's making a comeback. I think that's more of like a 50-50 matchup nowadays.
Mhm.
Just because like the Pidgeot's way better than Barrel for like Maridon. But how are you guys feeling about the Maridon deck right now? Like I saw like Azul posted a video like of the Sage and Park list from last week where he's playing like 2 Maridon, 4 Peonies, and a Mew EX. So the combo was like Peony, grab double generator, just get your hands turn 1, and the Mew EX draw 3. Is that list better than the path builds, or do we not know yet?
I don't think we know yet, really. I'd be interested to see like if people take that particular version to regionals and stuff, but uh I honestly think it's just even just still in a good spot with just the typical, couple paths, maybe a beach court type thing. Beach court shout outs.
There you go.
Yeah, beach court. Max, you feeling
Yeah.
any particular way?
I feel like just right now that one of the most broken things in the game is turn 1 Iron Hands, take 2.
Yeah.
Again, your opponent has been able to set up, some decks can't even respond effectively. I mean, any when you can pull off the ability to go Iron Hands turn 1, then you're just in such a dominant position. So a lot of these decks are just saying, hey, I'm just going to be the most consistent in getting turn 1 Iron Hands. Again, do they fall over against some battles against other 2 prizer decks? Probably a little bit. But again, since so much of the format is built up on small evolution guys, just being able to get that explosive start, take 2 prizes before your opponents even played a supporter, I think is just is extremely powerful, which is why we're seeing so many players opt for these decks. Even someone like Sage and Park, who's played a lot of different variety of decks, has played the conventional Maridon for a while, and then here said, hey, let's just even go even more turbo with 2 hands, 2 double turbo, Peony just gonna go speed through the deck.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of played it last week at our challenge, but I didn't play like the true turbo version. Like there's some lists that are like 2 double turbos or 4 peonies. I kind of played a hybrid of like in the middle. I played basically my list from LAIC -2 Arvin, +2 peony instead of Arvin, and then instead of path adding beach court and one more switch, I believe.
You also increase the energy counts, if I recall.
Yeah, to like 15 energy plus a double turbo. So I kind of like increased it just to see how that would feel. Honestly, like even some of my generators still weren't hitting well. You're like, man, you got 15 energy. How am I whiffing? I got 18 energy. How am I whiffing? But that's just variance, right? It's going to happen. Sometimes, and I don't know which one's better. I definitely, it's weird my evolution of like playing Maridon since the beginning of like loving Arvin to like, okay, maybe Arvin isn't that good to like, okay, let's try this Peony, and I think the jury's still out. I mean, the thing is, Peony is almost a better Arvin in a way, right? You get any 2 trainers and not just an item and a tool.
Yeah.
Peony, if you want an item and a tool, you can get an item and tool off Peony, but you lose your hand and you're only drawing 3. So I don't really know these lists. I've seen like it's 4 Peony, 2 boss. I think that's very greedy to not have any other draw spores except for Peony. But maybe in a best of 1 cup, maybe it works. Moving on to Guardy. So we got 2 questions for Guardy: VIP or no VIP, cape or no cape.
Start with VIP, we'll say.
Yeah. I'm personally still a fan of it.
VIP?
Yes, VIP. Oh, grab Mew Greninja, grab, I'm just grabbing Greninja. Like you're almost bound to have an energy in your hand, like to use. And just getting that first one out is it just gets you rolling for the rest of the game.
Because those lists are still only playing like 2 candies, so really like like the versions like before they were playing like 3 to 4 candy and then 4 VIP. So like they're trying to go more aggressive early. So now they're
Yeah.
playing like 4 VIP, 2 Candy, and still playing the Mirage Step Curlia.
Right.
Versus like the other non-VIP ones, they're just like strictly going to Mirage Step almost every game.
Mm-hmm.
So any thoughts on those kind of comments?
I at first didn't like the Mirage Step, but it's definitely like saved me and saved some of my opponents. So definitely a necessary evil, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Max, how you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, at first I think the first main appearance I saw it was Celios Network winning the tournament of the tournament of Doom regional
Yeah.
before LAIC with VIP list Guardians. It's at first like, hey, there's so much more space for things. VIP pass, you don't really need it because you can just go Mirage Step, which I think that is an idea. I think nowadays, really honestly, the reason that you can't play it is just due to Miraidon and Iron Hands and the prevalence that it has. For right now, if you're not playing VIP passes and you're up against Miraidon, then there's a lot of cases where you probably just lose if you're dependent on Mirage Step. Because if they go Iron Hands early and you go Mirage Step looking at an Iron Hands, well, now they're going to be up 2-6 and you haven't done anything yet, right? You need to be able to go faster. At least with the VIPs, you have this ability to go spread your board wide if you need to, or take the slow approach and just say, I'm going to go Mirage Step. I was listening to Matthew Burris. He had a great interview kind of talking about his list and why he preferred it at LAIC versus the other ones that only had no VIPs. So, a kind of a good listen there. And I think just the flexibility of it, you don't have to go spread your board of 4 waltz and get open 2 VIPs, but you have the possibility to. And otherwise, if it's a slower matchup, you can afford to Mirage Step.
You can afford to, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're saying yes to VIP or not to VIP? What's the jury?
I say yes personally.
I think Guardy needs to be playing VIP.
Yep. I think I agree with that as well. So Screamtail's been added to Guardy lately. I think it's a good attacker. It's very limited without a cape. It's only doing 160 without a cape. So it can KO all the support Pokemon, and it can KO Squawk. That's the only 2 prizes where it can KO. Unless they, teleportation burst into a Luminion or something and set up some damage. But how are we feeling about Cape? Should they be playing Cape? Should they be playing Screamtail? Like, how are you feeling about that?
When that card first came out, I was not sold on it. But then after like thinking about the card and looking at the card more, it's like you only take the prize if it's knocked out by damage. So like if they Sableye it, if they vacuum it, they only take 1 prize off of it still. So like that kind of sold me on it. And then plus Screamtail with the cape can hit like 290 or something like that.
360
320.
actually.
Or 360.
Yeah, isn't it
or
like 360?
Yeah,
It's
something
plus
like
100 HP, right?
180
it's
times
got,
2.
90. Yeah, 360. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking about the ancient vessel.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, sadly,
yeah.
you can't hit Charizard on the bench, which is like the worst part.
Yeah.
Because if you could, then I think it's a no-brainer that you play Cape, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's like you play up against Guardy, you're like, oh, I don't need Manaphy. I'll send that to the Lost Zone. I'll discard it.
Yeah,
And then
no,
you forget
sir.
about the Screamtail. It's like, I think it's really good. I don't know personally. Like I've played some with and without. I think the cape is a necessity if you want to see even just Screamtail the active Charizard for game or something is really good.
Yeah, I'm a little bit on the opposite side. I think that Cape is definitely powerful, but in terms of just building a consistent deck that can hang for, game after game, that the problem with Cape is that you don't have a way to find it. So, if you can't Mew for it, if it gets discarded or if it gets refinemented, then like you're never getting it back.
Yep.
Versus I think the alternative there is Zacian. There's some people saying, hey, do we want Cape or do we want Zacian? When you say Zacian, okay, it has some early game uses, Roar the Sword can get you some energy going. Gives decks flexibility for like a Force Seal Stone option if they wanted to do that. And I think really just the ability to super rod it back. You can go and refinement away your Zacian early. And then again, you just need a Fog Crystal or Ultra Ball to go and find your nuke at the end of the game to go and blow up Charizard, blow up a Mew VMAX, kind of whatever you need to close out the game.
Yeah.
So, Cape definitely strong. I mean, being able to turn Screamtail into a 320, 360 snipe on the bench, like that's extreme power, right?
Yeah.
But I think when you're just looking at like what slots you can afford in a deck and how easy it is to find these, that it's a little bit easier to get to the Zacian when you need it than the cape.
Yeah. Okay. So the jury's kind of split. I think we're all kind of split on that, right?
Yeah, jury split. I will say the cape's also good because you can put it on your Shining Arcana.
Yeah,
Just like blow things up that way too.
that's kind of crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't need reversal. You can just go and power that up, which you haven't
Yeah.
been able to do before, which definitely adds a lot of practicality. But then my other side that I would say is, isn't it more efficient to go and hit that damage with a basic Pokemon than with your stage 2, your coveted stage 2 type of
yeah,
thing? And now
yeah,
you're turning your stage 2 into a 2-prizer. So again, and something like Lost Box, I think has a lot more practicality than some of the bigger matchups like Charizard.
yeah. Okay. So speaking of Charizard, let's not spend too much time on it because I don't think the discussion really matters. I think the jury is basically going back to Pidgeot. Pidgeot, Barrel. How are you guys feeling?
Um honestly, so I think the ones that are playing the evolution tool are doing the barrel,
They are, yeah.
and then the ones without, just the four candy ones, are they're saying no one's gonna use the de-evolution tool. They're just going the Pidgeot route. And I think Pidgeot in like 95% of scenarios is just a better card than barrel.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's probably
because
pretty bad in the Rapid Strike, right? But it's probably the only time that's pretty bad.
yeah, I mean it's like
I feel like Rapid Strike is one of the only decks that's abusing the Devo tool. Correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah.
Some Valiants are playing it, but
Yeah,
again, we're not seeing a lot of usage of it. I think this is definitely a case of, hey, Evolution came out, let's try this. That doesn't seem as powerful. Oh, no one's really playing Devolution, or maybe we can afford to just go back to Pidgeot.
yeah,
Again, it's one of those things that I think that the meta kind of dictates whether you can get away with saying, hey, I'm just going to play one Charmeleon and it'll be fine.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I have seen a couple like turbo lost box decks like running around with the tool,
True.
but like I'm not sure. I'm not completely sold on that deck at the moment, I guess.
I think
Yeah.
the other one that was surprising to see the Devolution tool is in the Lost Tina with Moon. I
The
played
one that
one
just won this
Devolution
weekend.
tool.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, when you have some lists like that, they're sneaking around with it. Again, there's some of these decks that are sneaking in the right applications of it, and some decks are cutting Jirachi, and then like if that can leave room for a Lost Box deck to sneak in with a Devolution tool and you know just absolutely obliterate some of these Charizard decks that aren't respecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely think it's like good.
Yeah, but I mean, the ability to just use quick search to find whatever combo piece you need, especially with how popular Guardia is right now, being able to find that Lost City or that Avery or kind of whatever your piece is there, just to continue to disrupt, is really strong. Now, other decks, they like seeing the Pidgeot. They go and say, hey, here's something I can take 2 prizes on easier. So like
Yeah.
Miraidon, even a Shining Arcana Gardevoir can KO a Pidgeot a lot easier than they can KO a Charizard.
Yeah. You got counter catcher it, attach for turn, you're hitting 300. And it's like, okay, if you ignore this, I'm hitting 330 next turn with an attached return.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to put a thing in play. So so another deck that's, kind of off the wall, but people don't respect it, just want a tournament. Are we teching for Snorlax? Is it time to tech for Snorlax?
The Minior.
Yeah, I mean anything, right? Like,
Or
another
switching
switch
cards.
outs, whatever. Are we teching for Snorlax nowadays? I mean, it literally just won an event.
Did, yeah. Me personally, probably wouldn't. But
Yeah.
I'm not saying you shouldn't. If you don't like your matchup against that deck, if you can't fill your bench with things that are usable and can attack, or I would say, yeah, go for it. It depends how much you expect it, but like I feel like a lot of people want to have fun at regionals.
Yeah.
So they're gonna play not that deck.
That's what you think. Yeah.
That's true.
I mean, I had Venomoth and Control at Peoria, so
Peoria.
Yeah.
it's hard to say, like, do you tech for it or not. It's tough to say I'm going to throw in a Minior because it beats Snorlax, because it doesn't always beat Snorlax.
Yeah, if they
Again,
have
Right.
charm, it doesn't KO it, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Right.
there's ways for Stall to go around it. Really, the key of playing Minior against Snorlax is not that Snorlax has no way to defeat it. The problem is just that it puts them on the clock and they start swinging and KOing your Snorlaxes, and it's really tough to cycle that as well as set up like a penny loop or try to disrupt. I do think, if you're playing a card that, if you're a little worried about Snorlax Stall, think about other cards that are relevant in that area, such as like Professor Turo scenario, where you have spots like, say, in Guardy, where if you open up Greninja against a Snorlax Stall deck, then you just lose. But if you're playing that Turo, which again has plenty of other applications within the deck, you can go and say, okay, now I have a way to pick up my Greninja and not just have an auto loss. And I think some decks have a harder time than others. I feel like some like Miraidon, Mew, don't have as much problems with Snorlax Stall as some other decks, such as Charizard, such as Gardevoir, if they're not playing outs to it.
Yeah. Interesting to see how many people will pick it up after just one tournament, but like, yeah, it's not fun to play sometimes, but I respect someone that can play it well. Let's talk about the deck that never dies. Mew VMAX. Hammer Mew's out there now. Fusion Mew is still doing well with the Selgors. Is it Mew's time to still do well?
Of course.
And is DTE better or is Fusion better?
It's tough to say. I mean, I was actually just re-looking at this and I realized that there were 0 Lugias in day 2 of Gdansk. I see that there are tons and tons of Miraidon and Mew, which I would say are probably its 2 worst matchups. So there are oodles of Mews.
Yeah, I mean, it was like the most popular deck day 2 in Gdansk, right?
Mewdles, actually.
I mean, in Europe, they love their Mew VMAX.
Yeah. I mean, I know we got the Mew VMAX sponsor here on the podcast, Maddox Corcoran. Like, how you feeling about Mew right now, man?
I mean, Mew has different times where it's feeling good and different times where it's feeling bad. And I honestly think this is one of those times where Mew is feeling good. Again, I think the concern, and even a lot of the top players are playing the Selgor package, trying to say, hey, Moon and Charizard are tough matchups, and they're both going to be very popular decks at LAIC. Moon did not convert very well at all. It wasn't even played that much at all. So I think if there's a big drop off in Moon, and a lot of Mew players might just say, hey, the Guardy matchup's kind of weird, and Charizard is tough to play against, but maybe I can do some Luxray or some Hammers, or just, stick a path, or just, get some kind of fusion, Meloetta, Melodious Echo, KOs, then you can work around it. I think the real benefit of playing Mew right now is these other decks that are gaining a lot of popularity. You got Chen Pao, Chen Pao is a little bit on the decline, but Miraidon's very popular right now. Mew has a good matchup into there. Iron Valiant's picking up some steam. Mew's pretty favored into that. These other kind of fringe decks, Rapid Strike's coming back. Again, Rapid Strike, might not have ever beaten Mew once. I mean, like these matchups that are just have a hard time with it. Mew can prey on a lot of these matchups. The really issue is going to come into saying, can it keep up with the Charizards and Gardevoirs that we're expecting to see a lot of at regionals?
Yeah. So I think, I don't want to speak for you guys, but what I'm hearing is that Mew's good, and if you're not playing Mew, you should play Spiritomb.
No, don't play Spiritomb. Don't play Spiritomb.
You good.
No, but seriously, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of these decks that have such a hard matchup into Mew playing the Spiritomb. But also, it kind of depends. Some people feel a little bit more confident in the matchup than others. And if you feel like you have, I have my paths, I have my other ways, I can outspeed them. Or again, if you're building a deck and you say, how much Mew is going to show up? 10%. If I'm playing in a regional, maybe I'll hit 1. Maybe if I lose to 1, that's okay. And I can still go 8-1, or I can go 7-1-1 or 6-2-1, right? Again, it kind of comes in that deck building decision of how much to respect the deck.
Yeah, you can't beat everything, right? There's so many decks. We've hit like what, 7 now? I haven't even talked about them all.
Yeah, exactly. The way the meta is right now is just very diverse, where you can roll up with any number of different decks and see success. You have your fair share of hard matchups, but again, you have your fair share of successful matchups.
So just touch on a couple of decks before we transition to our tier list discussion. Tord decided to not play Guardy. And he played some kind of Lost Box with Palkia, Iron Hands. Was there a Moon in there too?
Roaring Moon, yep.
Roaring Moon and a Kyogre, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's been interesting. I've been playing with it some. It's, you can Palkia to your Greninja turn 2. You can Palkia to your Kyogre late without a gate. So it's kind of interesting. It's another way. It's another kind of pseudo super rod / gate. It's like 2 cards in one, which is kind of weird to say. How you feel about that deck? Is that a real deck people should be like scared of going into Germany and going into San Antonio?
I think that people will play it, but people who are not as good as Tord Reklev will not do as good as Tord Reklev with the deck.
Like I was surprised when I looked at the list. Like the most surprising thing to me was no Raihan, because like double gate to hands just feels like awful. Like feels terrible.
But again, if you have a Palkia V-Star, don't you kind of have 5 Mirage Gates?
Yeah, that's true. You
So
got a
I mean,
valid point.
yeah, I mean, again, any deck that can just turbo out an Iron Hands, I think, is going to be intrinsically powerful. Yes, the double gate feels rough, and also like no double turbo, right? You have to have a pre-attachment to it or use a double Mirage Gate just to get it going. But like overall, I mean, I think the deck is something you need to be on the lookout for. Again, kind of like Parker said, I don't, it would take a very strong player to pilot it at a high level, especially because you have one ofs of all your attackers. And even then, I think the deck is maybe better poised for a best of 3 situation. I wouldn't necessarily bring it to your cup. There's a little bit of consistency issues, I think, with it. You're just playing the 4 Colress, 3 Pokegear. No other disruption. I think there's a lot of surprise factor with that. Now that the deck has been out there and people have seen it, a few more people be ready for it, a little bit know what to expect. But honestly, really kind of like I think Tord said on the interview, it says, hey, I just kind of threw all the best attackers into one deck. Roaring Moon's a strong attacker, Iron Hand's a strong attacker, you still have Sableye, Greninja, and hey, Palkia V-Star, sometimes swinging for 260 or just 220. The subspace swell is still good. So
280 health, yeah.
Very efficient. Something against like Iron Valiant, like they can't do anything about that. So I mean, there's a lot of decks that I think it has a good matchup into. The key is just rolling enough to be able to pull it off and saving all your combo pieces.
Speaking of Palkia, I just want to touch on this 3rd place list. I saw a little bit of it on stream. Kind of saucy.
Yeah, I mean the Ice Riders for the Maridon matchup, right?
As for a lot of things, I think it's like it's a kill button.
Yeah, I mean, I like the list. If I mean, right now it's weird. While you look at this, like, would you rather play this Palkia deck or would you rather play Chen Pao? I think I'd rather play the Palkia deck. While Chen Pao's maybe has a higher ceiling, like its floor is way lower. Because it's just a pile. Versus this has 4 Irida, 4 Melanie, 1 boss. It's actually got more than 4 supporters in it. Yeah.
I think the part that's kind of off to me is that there's like no barrel, right? We're used to seeing Palkia barrel.
Yeah.
I think the tier list later we have is like Palkia with barrel, but this is just Palkia, water box.
Yeah, and it's playing the Mew EX to draw, I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Mew EX, Greninja.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that something like Chen Pao still has a higher ceiling, especially again, Iron Hands EX. Word on the street is it's a pretty good card. But again, cool for me as just a fan of water decks and playing some Ice Rider Palkia, Ice Rider Calyrex back in the day. It's kind of cool to see it back on stream and doing well. A spicy list, my first time looking at it.
Yeah,
Melanie's just a good card. It's like imagine if Professor Sada's was just a little bit worse and only to V's. So
yeah, I'm like, imagine if Sada went to everything.
Oh boy.
No thanks.
Okay, last question before we transition. So we went to LAIC. The hype everywhere was Moon. Roaring Moon this, Roaring Moon that. Now you got people throwing it into Tina. You got people throwing it into Lost Box. You got people just like throwing it in decks because it's that good of an attacker. So Moon was very scary and it hasn't converted well by itself, except for in Gdansk, we saw one list get like 10th place or something like that. Should you still respect Moon?
I think so. I mean, it's hard to like respect it because that card's just nasty.
Yeah.
Like I think you like have to be prepared for it. If you're playing anything with comfy in it, you have to be prepared for your active to just get blown up out of nowhere by a Roaring Moon. But
yeah.
Nasty card.
I think Roaring Moon EX as a card is to be respected. I think the Roaring Moon EX decks as they are, maybe just a little bit like too linear and not doing enough. again, I think
Yeah.
if they can go and pull off the energy switch Greninja Moonlight Shuriken, then it's like all right,
Turn one.
I'm just gonna tip my cap there. Like that's impressive. But I
Yeah.
think just there's some consistency issues with the deck. Especially if you get an early path down. I mean, the deck's really, really reliant on getting squawkability down
Yeah.
and playing it turn one to just get those resources down. And now you're saying your board state is I have a squawk down, I have a Mew EX down, and I have a Roaring Moon that's putting myself down to 30 or 90 HP. And speaking of which, I don't even think we're seeing any builds playing the Ancient Booster Capsule right now.
Yeah, not many, no. Because they used to want to play it with the Brute Bonnet so they can do like a little bit more damage, hit that 230 number or whatever. But yeah.
Exactly. I mean,
most
a lot of these,
are not opting for it.
Right, they're not really playing any other attackers. Maybe a Morpeko and Radiant Greninja. Those are like their only single prize attackers.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit to get them going. I mean, personally, for me, I'm not considering Roaring Moon of strong deck. I think that you'll see a couple if you go to a regional, maybe one in your first rounds. But I think it's again will kind of continue to have a poor conversion into day two. I do think we'll see Roaring Moon as the card splashed into Sable Zard, splashed into maybe some people roll up this Tina list or played some toward Lost Box. We'll definitely see some Roaring Moon, but I think the Turbo Roaring Moon with the Seda just isn't. I don't know if it's not the right list or just not the right space in the metagame. We're just not seeing enough of it right now.
Yeah, I think the fact that you need the dark patch to go with it is the issue, right? If it was just a 2 attacker and it's like Seda attach,
oh, hell no.
Like even if like the first attack, like the 220 attack with Stadium, if that required a Stadium and only 2 energy, maybe it's a little bit better. And then like have a 3 energy like instant KO, sure, but like I think the issue is finding the dark patch, because you can't play Arven to consistently find your dark patch because you have to play Setas. So you're playing Setas, you're playing Squawk, you're playing Trekking Shoes, you're playing Pokestop. Like you're doing everything you can to get it. But like I think it like if you want to play a high roll deck and you want to do well at a regional, just play Miraidon. It's better. High roll your generators, play every single game, and you're fine. I mean, I think that's just the better high roll deck that there is. And so maybe that's why Moon's not seeing that much success, even though it takes a good Miraidon matchup, which Miraidon's seeing a lot of play. So
yeah, I mean, all these decks, any deck that can mixing a single prizer to take a KO against Moon, I think is just, inherently just makes Moon's job tougher because like they can maybe attack with more Pekko, but like 70 is not even enough sometimes.
Right.
And if you got to go, sometimes you're like, oh, I need to go and discard a Stadium to KO this Radiant Greninja. Like it gets kind of messy in some of those spots. It's like, I don't want to go and put 200 damage on myself. Again, really, really strong card, like, to close out games or in the right time and splash into a Lost Box. But I think we need to see a little bit more from like the turbo lists and find the right combination that'll, take off to see some real tournament success.
All right, so next, let's get ready to transition to our tier list discussion for the next 2 majors. Before we do, just want to talk about Nakama Anime Cafe and Bar. They have a League Cup this weekend at 1 o'clock. Registration starts at 12. There's also a link below that you can register in the video. So if you're listening on the podcast, come over to YouTube, check out our Twitter, and you'll see the link there. Starts at 1 o'clock. Parker Greenwald will be your judge. He will be the awesome judge there. And me and Max will be busy taking down first or second. But if you want to get 3rd through 8th, come hang out, come have fun with us. We'll see you there. Be there bright and early, but after 12, we're going to start right at 1. So deck lists will be due at 12:45. I'm looking at you, Maddox, when I'm saying this. Anyways, let's get the transition to our tier list discussion. Those of you listening on podcast platforms and not on YouTube, we will be building this list live. So if you want to hop over to the video, just search for Beach Court Podcast on YouTube, drop the subscribe button, drop the follow. We really appreciate it. And hope you enjoy the tier list.
All right, so we can go and hop right into it. We took the same tier list that we used for our pre-LAIC predictions. So there's a couple lists that'll kind of be reinterpreted. Again, like we were talking about, this Palkia wasn't even playing Barrel, but we have some Grace, Valiant, Entei with the Metacham still. And we have a new inclusion, which is Mr. Tord Reklev himself for the Tord Lost Box. So
yes, all right. So let's just jump into it. Maddox, you want to lead us off?
Yeah, I mean, let's kick things off. I mean, first of all, again, we have the few tiers, and we trimmed down the deck list a little bit to really look at some of the main, we think meta defining decks that are going on right now. Really, where they're ranking against each other. So, let's start off with, again, the big one we've been talking about already. You have Charizard with Pidgeot.
Pidgeot.
Again, very strong deck.
Very strong deck.
Lots of success. Again, lots of people are playing, and lots of players are talking about it.
Yep.
I vote tier 1. Yeah, tier 1.
100%.
Yeah, that's so good.
Charizard.
No, I think it's pretty fair. I mean, one of the strongest decks in the room, and the one that you need to be ready for. And I think it'll still retain a pretty high meta percentage, like we've talked about it before. So,
yep.
Just going through things. I mean, Guardy, again, we're hitting two of the big hitters right off the top. I mean, Guardy, it's been tier S before. On our most recent tier list, we did not have it in tier S.
Yep.
We had a very strong showing of it from LAIC and consistently overall. Is it time for Guardy to be back in the tier S conversation?
I think so.
It's in the conversation for sure. I mean, there's 3 in top 8 at LAIC, 2 in top 8 at Brisbane.
Yeah.
While it hasn't done super well. I mean, I did win Brisbane, and Gdansk did not make top 8 there. So, I mean, I wonder why it didn't make top 8 in Gdansk. I mean, the first Guardy list is, where the heck is the first 21st place? Didn't even make top 16.
Bunch of Muse.
Yeah, I mean, but like
Maridon?
Guardy should beat Mew. Yeah, I mean, that was a Maridon tournament, right? Wasn't that 21% Maridon or something like that?
Yeah, well, you get Judge Path Grabbered, and suddenly you're not playing Pokemon anymore. Playing Draw, Attach, Pass, or
yeah. I mean, I have a hard time saying that like it's the definitive tier S best deck, but I mean, any deck that can draw a bunch of cards and have do a bunch of things
as a one prizer.
Yeah, maybe it just is tier S, and I think giving it that recognition says that, hey, you have to be able to beat that deck, or you're playing that deck, right? So I think that's the one deck that you do look at and you say, okay, if I'm playing this deck to a tournament, I should be playing it, or I have to beat it. So yeah,
I agree. I think Guardy's the deck to beat. So yeah. I think rightfully deserving a tier S spot.
Yep.
You may have done it intentionally or unintentionally, but when you said decks that draw a lot of cards, have the ability to do a lot of things, and to take big knockouts with one prizer, you did happen to describe some elements of UV Max with Fusion with Meloetta. So is UV Max Fusion tier S as well?
It does seem to be positioned really well.
I'll say 1.
I mean, like you bench yeah, I mean, because it can't really beat Guardy, right? Like consistently.
Yeah, it definitely didn't beat Guardian finals of the World Championship.
I mean, this is before Counter Catcher, though, right?
No, I'm with you there. I mean, UV Max, while it hits some of those points, it doesn't have the same ability to recycle single prize attackers like Guardy does. And again, I think it has there's too much attacking in the meta, right? Even though we just said Roaring Moon maybe isn't as legitimate, but has a really tough time in a Charizard. I think tier 1 is a little bit more appropriate. Yeah. Even though we know it's strong, and again, our World Championship winning deck, and my favorite still. But
yeah, I mean, I think Fusion Mew is very strong.
Oh, yeah. But now the big hitter that everyone's been talking about, everyone's been loving, that has been making 1 or 2 in day 2 consistently, Cloth. Cloth, is it time? Jeez, if only we had the bigger pictures for that one. Cloth, where are we at?
It's tier 2. You cannot put it above tier 2. It can't beat Guardy. It literally has, out of all the decks that are here, it probably has the worst Guardy matchup, even worse than Goldango. And the Goldango has a pretty bad Guardy matchup. But I think Cloth has definitively the worst matchup on the board against Guardy.
I mean, if you can chain single prizers, you're attacking turn 1. I think there are decks with worse matchups than Gardevoir than Cloth. But I do agree. I mean, you can't really put Cloth any higher than tier 2, even though, hey, it's like
go 3. Where does it go 2?
I think it's 2. I mean, it's made day 2 a couple of times now.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think you have to respect the deck. I mean, at least watch a YouTube video and know how it operates. So if you get paired against it, you know what's going on.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's higher than tier 2.
We'll throw it in tier
Yeah.
2 for now. We can always adjust it later. Another big one we've spent a lot of time talking about. Miraidon EX with Iron Hands.
I'll let Parker go first and see what he thinks
Tier,
first.
tier 1 for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost tempted to put it in tier 1, but the problem is tier S. But the problem is there's one glaring bad matchup that isn't great. Well, I guess 2 if you count Mew, but you just throw a Spiritomb in to fix that. Brought to you by Mew propaganda. Anyways, the Charizard matchup's not great. Like it's at best it's 50-50 against Charizard. And then with Rapid Strike coming into format and starting to see some play, like it's a little scary. I think that's why Rapid Strike is seeing some success because Miraidon is. We talked about that earlier. And we also talked about like Peony build versus like Turbo or Path. So I think just because there's so many different ways to build it, that it has to be tier 1, right? I want to make it S tier, but since there's so many different ways to build it and play it, and it has a couple of like iffy matchups that it just can't. I mean, it's the only deck in the room that probably has like a really good Guardy matchup. Right. So
Yeah.
if you want to beat Guardy, you play Miraidon, but then you just gotta like know your matchups versus the other decks. Because those other decks are gonna come for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Miraidon can still certainly lose to Guardy, but I think again, it's just that turn 1 Iron Hands and forcing them to not go to Mirage Step, I think just really is what's putting it here. And then again, just a strong level against anything else. So
Yeah.
here's a deck we haven't heard from in a little bit, and Parker already talked about not seeing it in some day 2. We have Lugia. We'll cover both variants here. I mean, we have colorless variant, which has seen a lot more play lately, but then also single strike. Again, single strike. Again, having that tough Charizard matchup, and colorless being a little bit more flexible, throwing single prizers. But really, again, hasn't seen much play, and really hasn't seen a lot of top players, even played Lugia for a long time, picking it up for LASC.
I mean, I think it's on the same level as Cloth, sadly.
Yeah, I was about to say I would put a tier 2 here, but it feels bad to be on the same level as Cloth.
But I mean, like, one of these decks can beat Miraidon, and it's not Lugia.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, the Cloth matchup in the Miraidon, like, not terrible.
I think colorless is tier 2, and I think single strike is tier 3.
Single strike's tier 3.
Yeah, no one's playing it. It's not very good. It's not consistent. I mean, I guess you take a better Miraidon matchup if you're playing single strike. It's still not great.
Still not good. Yeah.
You take a much better Mew matchup. And if you play the what's the metal guy or the Cobalion, thank you. Yeah, the Cobalion. If you play the Cobalion, then you can KO Charizard.
Well, that's like if I happen to have all 4 of my energy plus Tyranitar, plus I can find a Pokeball to get to.
Yeah, you just need 3 plus Cobalion.
Yeah, I mean, you still need a lot to get to it. I think this conversation put in tier 3 again feels weird to put it at the same level as Cloth, but that might just be where it is right now.
Yeah, I think tier 2 at best for both.
They're both in tier 2 for now. Another hot button deck, Roaring Moon EX. We had it in tier 1 before. A lot of other players did. It had a pretty strongly rated deck. Didn't fall off. I mean, kind of fell off. Is Roaring Moon back in? Is it taking a step back to tier 2, or is there still enough there and the cards are strong enough that we can still put it in tier 1?
Definitely strong enough, but I might have mentioned it in the last episode. I don't actually remember if I did, but I mentioned that I don't think any like top player is going to play that deck because there's not much like outplay potential. You just play the cards you have in your hand, kind of. So it's just like I would put it in tier 2. Definitely like the potential to just like roll a tournament, but like I would say tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, I would say tier 2 as well. And as we're starting to develop this list, Cloth probably just goes to tier 3, huh?
Cloth and single strike, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Cloth and Single Strike probably go to tier 3. I would think. I would say the Cloth is better than Moon. I mean, you need less pieces to do like Moon attacks than you do Cloth attacks, right?
I guess so.
Yeah, I mean, like it. Yes, it's kind of a meme, but like, yes, there's also kind of something there.
Yeah,
And in the
Oh,
right
for sure.
matchups.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if we look at it purely from a
You
matchup
just
side
shit on
for
the
Cloth,
right on.
and like, yeah, are we favored into those matchups again? Things like I could say Zard, like we know you have Electrode. It's almost a little bit like a weakness box. Again, I think it has that
yeah.
early start. Again, not a lot of draw. And there's a barrel. I don't know. I mean, it's a little harder for it to maybe close out games, and its advantages is that early game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
We're a Cloth podcast now. We everything is in relation to Cloth. So
The beach cloth.
I mean, the beach court does love to have some crabs out there.
The Beach
the
Cloth
beach.
podcast. We'll put back and we'll leave Cloth. We'll just leave it here for now. We can go and readdress it later.
Yeah.
Chen Pao.
Chen Pao's tier 2. It just is. The deck. Its ceiling is S tier, but it's just so dysfunctionally bad. Like 9 out of 10 games. And like that's the same place. I know Tina's next, but like the same place Tina belongs. Like their ceilings are so good. I think it's the same with Moon, right? I put all those kind of in the same category. Lugia, Moon, Chen Pao, Tina. They all have the same like strength level, like very, very strong if they're very consistent, but they're not. Like that's what the tier 2 is becoming for us. It's like those strong, not consistent decks.
I still think Chen Pao and Tina are still a level above like Colorless Lugia and Roaring Moon in terms of just playability now.
Right now, yeah.
I mean, I agree there's consistency issues.
Yeah. I wish
but
I wish I would see those Chen Pao consistency issues when I play against it, because they get turn 2 backs, 70 energies, cross switcher your guy turn 2 every game when I play against it.
I mean, I guess the question is, do we think it can win a tournament?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, that's a slippery slope, right? And I think any of these decks could win a tournament if everything goes right for them. Could Cloth win a tournament? I don't know about that. Could Colorless Lugia win a tournament?
No.
Like, I see a world. Maybe.
I mean, if you're one of those guys that just like happens to never hit Miraidon through 15 rounds.
I mean, is Roaring Moon winning a tournament?
No, that's why I have it there.
I don't think it would.
But I think Chen Pao or Tina could win a tournament.
I think so.
All right. Sounds like we either need a tier 1.5 or just put them in tier 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's back into tier 1. I definitely do look at Chen Pao and say like not as good as any of these other decks in tier 1.
Yeah.
But not quite to that level. Do we want a tier 1.5 first to squeeze them in here?
The 1.5 it.
Yeah, let's add a row.
Oh shoot!
Oh my!
Oh, this is what happens when you do tier list live, folks.
Add a row above tier Chen Pao. I mean tier 1.5. So make this that. There we go. Oh shoot! I messed up the click. Go boom. Oh no, we've ruined everything.
It's okay. Looks like we're missing tier 2 now.
I know. We'll get back to it. And we were kind of started already, but like Tina. I mean, again, we saw the new Tina Moonless. It just won. Where did it just win? Was that Singapore Nationals or Malaysia?
Yeah. I think it just belongs in the same place as Chen Pao. Good strong deck, not consistent enough.
What do we think of something like the Roaring Moon and Tina? Good play, not a good play?
Yeah, well, I think it's great.
I think it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you just stay single prize for a couple of turns, if you can, unless you're playing against Miraidon, and then you go bench Moon, gate to Moon, attach to Moon, Roxanne path, bench a Tina, gate to the Tina.
Yeah, like the board states you can pull off with Tina. It's like Roxanne path counter catcher, Moon plus Tina powered up. It's like, Like,
yeah, like
Oh.
you don't have to bench 2 Tinas anymore. You just bench a Moon and a Tina. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
but
I
like
do like that
you
fact.
lose water, right? So like you lose your
The
opponent having to
Greninja.
bench Manaphy, right?
Yeah.
That's the trade off if you wanted to play that list. Is it worth it? Maybe,
Maybe.
but like Chen Pao wouldn't care. Maridon, if that against Maridon, I'm actually loving that because I can bench 2 Mareeps. Right now I can only bench 1. Guardy's like, oh, I have an extra bench spot for another Guardy. Mirage Step, like chilling. So I don't know if it's better into the meta. That's the question. Like, we don't have any data about how that list did, what matchups it hit, what the meta was for that tournament yet. So who
Also,
knows?
was Malaysia best of one? Because I know they do a lot of best of one tournaments
Yeah, I don't know.
Malaysia,
over
yeah.
in the East. So, I mean, if it is a case like that, then you see Tina and you kind of have to say, hey, I have to respect that they could have Greninja until you see them, conceal the, or not, I guess you can still conceal away a dark energy and you have you have your Manaphy down already. It says, okay. But no, definitely Tina again. I think really strong ceiling. Good to see some success with it. I think the Moon's a good move. Again, just needs to see a little bit more consistency to be able to say, hey, I can stick around and I can win a tournament. So,
ET Mew.
DTE Mew.
I think tier 1.
Um, if Spiritomb wasn't a card that existed, I would say it's S tier.
True,
But
actually.
because it does, I think it's tier 1.5. Just because there's so many matchups where you could just lose when your opponent plays one tech card. And I think right now the Hammer Mew that saw success and all the success we saw at Gdansk, I think we're going to see some hate on Mew these next 2 tournaments. And people are going
Yeah,
to
but
play
everyone
Spiritomb.
always says that.
Yeah, I do think that a lot of decks might start including things like Spiritomb, just kind of be ready for DTE Mew. Also, I mean, to speak of the Hammer Mew list, again, didn't see a lot in day 2, but we did see the Selgor builds of DTE Mew also go in, which again was there to help that Charizard matchup. Really makes the Charizard, gives you better options into Charizard. But again, it still adds a little bit of clunk to the deck. You need to play Super Rod to recover your Selgors and your Grass Energies, so add some difficulty there, just the synergy. Again, Judge Path consistently is strong, and I do think that, a very strong deck to go to a League Cup with, especially if no one's ready for Spiritomb. No one's ready with Spiritomb, and you're able to hit the right matchups. But I think when it comes to, tournament-wise, again, just that inherent risk of Spiritomb, and again, a little bit more linear than something like Fusion Mew that has the Ice Cube, has the Deoxys, has the Meloetta that they can mix in there to mix up the prize trade.
Yeah.
Yep.
Goldango tasting himself.
Abby, I'm sorry, but it's tier 3.
There's like a 3.5.
I think we're at our limit of tiers that we can
Yeah.
add. We've already added 1 tier mid list. I think we can't add the second one.
I mean, we can put it in tier 2 because like it does have a good Maridon matchup. Its Mew and Charizard matchups are kind of fine. They're not great, but like just like Cloth, it has a terrible Guardy matchup.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's really going to hold any deck back that you can play if it has a tough time in Nagardi. And then again, you have to be really skeptical playing it and saying I have to dodge a lot of good decks in the room in order to see a deep run with it.
But I mean, I could be comfortable saying it's tier 2 just because it does draw a bunch of cards and it has a good Maridon matchup.
Yeah, I'm fine with tier 2 for now. So
sure.
one of our 2 lost boxes. So this is not our Tord lost box just yet. We'll get to that at the end, but we have our Sablezard. Some are playing double turbos, help answer Iron Hand. Some are playing Roaring
Gates.
Moon.
Yep.
Gates again, a little bit of a mixed, almost a little bit more of a hybrid between like the turbo lost box and the Sablezards of old. I mean, where's Sablezard sitting these days?
Yeah, I mean,
5 maybe.
Just looking at like data on online tournaments, I know it's best of ones and less good players probably playing it, but tournament yesterday, its win percentage was 33% overall.
Ooh.
Like it was seeing some like really good success numbers going into LAIC. It was a deck that I kind of had on my radar as well. I just don't think that I don't think it's in a great place right now. Again, just because Miraidon's doing well, Turbo Hands is doing well. It probably is a tier 1.5 deck just because it does have a really good ceiling. If you can hit the right matchups, right? But I mean, because like just like looking what it's compared to, it should beat Mew, because it's playing like 5 path outs and sometimes playing Drapion as well. And if you have the Devo tool, you should be favored in the Charizard EX. Your Guardian matchup's kind of sus. And your Miraidon matchup is kind of sus as well. So
I mean, Sable's art still has to worry about Jirachi and Charizard. I think that's the
yeah,
issue
I
with
think
it
that's what's
now.
holding it back, right? Yeah.
But I mean, if I look at it, I do see Sable's art as a level above Goldango, Roaring
Yeah, I
Moon,
do
and,
too.
and
Yeah.
Lugia.
Yeah. Mm.
So,
yeah, so I think 1.5 is good.
squeeze in that 1.5. All right.
Oh.
The big one, Block Snorlax. Some say it should be banned. It just won a tournament. Others say it's no big deal. Other people say just play Minior. I mean, again, I think there's two different levels to this. There's one, how good is the deck as a whole, and how much you need to be worried about it at a tournament.
Yeah.
I think tier 1.
Yeah, I also agree that it's tier 1 because it takes a good matchup into the meta, and that's what this is about. Is like these next 2 tournaments is, is it a good play? Are people going to do well with it? Like I think people will continue to do well with it. So I think it is a tier 1 deck.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially with the way that a lot of lists are built these days of playing, 0 switching cards and just relying on retreats and leaving a lot of players very vulnerable to a retreat lock like this. I think until the meta shifts to really respect it a lot and people are playing Turos, people are playing switching cards, it's going to stay here. But I think just because it's in tier 1, I think that you'll still see more players at a regional playing all of the tier 1.5 decks than you will see Snorlax.
Yep, no, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're getting to some of the weird ones at the end of the list. Arceus Duraludon.
Can we just put both Arceus decks in tier 3, please?
Tier 3, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just.
I think
yeah.
if you can get the Vulpix set up in that deck, I think it's pretty solid. But otherwise, it's kind of rough with like Lugia and like Lost Box being like somewhat favorable matchups. Like that they're decreasing in popularity. Like it's just not good for old Duraludon boy.
Yeah, a big fall off despite having still one of the most powerful abilities we've seen in the
honestly top 5 Pokemon card ever printed. I think.
Probably.
But
and just now like tier 3 not good compared to Mew has been printed 2021 and we're still talking about it. So
you just can't go attach pass in this format. If you go attach pass in this format, you just lose.
Die if you go second, okay, Chen Pao kills you, okay, Lugia kills you, okay, like everything's killing you. It's like
and 180 is not
180. Yeah,
not doing
okay, you knocked out my Comfy. That's like the only thing dying to that attack nowadays.
All right, Palkia. So this is Palkia Barrel, but we'll kind of consider this the new Palkia build. Maybe Ice Rider, maybe playing Barrel.
Just Palkia
like
in general.
Palkia as a whole, Palkia in general. I mean, where is it sitting these days? Is it in that 1.5 conversation, or is it still?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's better than Lugia.
Think so?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very efficient attacker. The deck is
Pretty
not
consistent. Yeah.
it's very consistent. Doesn't take a lot to have maintenance. Yeah, you take a bad Miraidon matchup, but I think if you set up the Ice Rider, you don't prize the piece, and you can set it up. Miraidon could have a tough time in you. Like, yeah, they'll take the first 2 easily with either Raikou or maybe 3 with Iron Hands if they get there. But when they're doing that, you're instantly responding to it, every time.
Yeah.
10 out of 10, 10 out of 10 times. So you're just like trading those 2 prizers. So I think if you just go, second, there's a world where you take the first 2 prizes with Suicune. So I don't hate it, and I think it's better than the tier 2 decks.
Sure. I mean, I agree with that. I agree it's pretty consistent. If Miraidon somehow does whiff the turn 1 knockout, and you go first, like you actually probably win that match.
Yeah, I agree.
So
I-
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think funny. I think the Miraidon matchup is like the problem with the Miraidon matchup is if they can go like a turn one hands on your Palkia V or something
Oh,
like
of
that. I mean
course.
that's what
Yeah.
makes it like really problematic. But but really Palkia I think is able to trade the two prizes pretty well with Miraidon. I still don't know if I'm looking at decks in the room that I'm respecting. I think I'm respecting the DTE Muse, the Tinas, the Chen Pao, Sablezard a little bit more than I'm respecting a Palkia deck.
I think
Right.
that's why it's positioned well, though. I
There's
think like for
nothing.
these two tournaments, I think it is a low key really good play. Because again, even if you take 3 on a Palkia V, it doesn't change anything. You still need 2
Yeah.
more not you're not gonna
So
do
it's
you're not
just
gonna
two
do
more
hands again
knockouts.
for a 3. So you still need 2 more knockouts. It doesn't change the prize race.
Yeah. I kind of like it in 1.5 actually.
Yeah.
Um, but also it's yeah, the Ice Rider thing is pretty cool. Might
Yeah,
have
I
to
mean,
try that
for
out.
me, it's like tucked towards the back of the tier.
Sure.
And we can revisit it in a second if we need to. So, but
Mhm.
no, definitely a strong deck and cool to see some success with it.
Yeah.
Rapid Strike, kind of back on the,
Mm.
kind of coming back. You know, we've seen the Iron Valiants of the world, get some attention. Again, Rapid Strike sneaking back in. How do you feel about it?
1.5 for me, I think.
Yeah, I think 1-5 or better.
Right.
I mean, what? It's worse matchups like Mew, right?
Yeah, Mew is like bleh.
Which is why,
It
it's
probably
shocking to see
has a
that Rahul
bad
did well in Gdansk with so much Mew.
yeah. It probably has a bad Goldango matchup.
Probably. I mean, looking at Rahul's list, like played the Spirit Tomb, which is cool, but like didn't play anything else to respect Mew. No Giacomo, none
And
of that.
sometimes that's all you need.
Well, I think like if you're playing against Fusion, I think you need the Giacomo as well to like get the energies off of the Genesects. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's a tough matchup, like kind of no matter which way you put it. I think the benefit of playing Spiritomb is that you take the DT Emu matchup and just really swing it in your favor if you can just catch them without getting set up and you're able to go
yeah.
and just attack into them several times. But again, they don't need much, especially Fusion, if you're able to. Because the hard part is, just playing Giacomo is good. The hard part is getting to that while also dealing with disruption and trying to take knockouts and try to get set up.
I
Yeah.
low key think it's a tier 1 play for the next 2 regionals. Like just looking at its matchups, it takes a good Guardy matchup, probably. Takes a good Miraidon matchup, takes a good Charizard matchup. Chen Pao, if you see a Chen Pao, it's a good matchup. Your bad matchups are like Mew and Tina. Um, and that's it, right? So maybe it's like pushing tier 1. Like, is it better than Chen Pao? Is like that's the answer, right? Is it better than
You're
Chen
like,
Pao?
yeah, it's got a bad like single strike Lugia matchup, but like that's not like I
Oh,
wouldn't
that's
be afraid
way.
of that.
You're not going to see that deck at all.
Yeah. I
Like
I do think the risk is that decks like Tina and Mew are
Tina.
on a little bit on the rise right
Yeah,
now.
no, I agree.
And if they're going to see some more play, then Rapid Strikes are just a casualty of that, despite being all right into other decks.
I'm fine with where it is. Yeah.
All right, a couple quick hitters here. Gudra,
Yeah. No.
Lost Gudra still tier 3.
Yeah.
Zorbox, I love it. I think there's something there, but
I think
can't
it's
put in.
2. I think it's 2. I mean, honestly, like I've seen it make day 2 a couple of times. I think it's better than Cloth. I think it's on the same power level as Moon and Goldie. I don't see why it shouldn't be a tier 2.
It's like Goldie, maybe not Moon, but
All right, and if y'all will allow it, I'll put it in tier 2.
I mean, it's better than the Arceus decks.
Yeah, fair enough. Lost Charizard EX. We haven't really seen this one a little bit too much. Again, we still have seen some high placements with it in the past. I mean, is this a deck that we're even considering on the radar, or if you're not?
It's definitely Rogue, right?
I think it's 2.
I think it's too rogue right now, especially with how prevalent hands is. You're not able to respond quick enough to it.
Yeah, if you
And
don't
You
just
are
have
though.
are you though? If they go
You just go
hands,
Zard Evolve, it knocks it out.
no, you need
Easy.
vacuum because they're gonna have charm on hands.
Maybe.
I think there's too much to set up there. I mean, I think there's a reason we're not seeing a lot of play with it.
Yeah, I think that's tier. I think
Lately.
that belongs with like Gudra. Yeah.
Okay.
Last two before we'll do a quick list review. Iron Valley and Entei. This has been a big one. People are, I think I like to say it won the record for most net decks. In this past, few weeks with a lot of people picking it up and buying their NTVs on a TCG player wherever. I mean, is this a legitimate tier 1 deck
Yeah.
that people
I
need to be
think
ready
so.
for?
Yeah,
I think
so too.
It is so stinking consistent and requires like no setup almost.
Yeah, it's just like
It's like
the question with that deck is can you play the game after turn 2?
yeah, basically.
Like turn 1, turn 2, you're gonna have really good turns and it's consistent. And then when you get IO to 3, it's not looking very good. Because of that, I still think it's tier 1. I do. I mean, there's a lot of decks that have to evolve. You look at Guardy, you look at Chen Pao. It takes a
Comfies on the
50-50
bench.
Miraidon matchup.
Mhm.
It's Fusion's probably again its worst matchup. A lot of decks out here, this worst matchup is Mew, but sadly, there's just one card that helps fix that matchup. You just gotta play it. So yeah, I think it's tier 1.
I would say tier 1 as well.
All right. Last off, Tord Lost Box. So again, we talked about Sable Zard. We talked about some other Lost Box variants. Again, we're just talking here kind of toolbox. You got Kyogre, you got Roaring Moon, you got Iron Hands, you got Greninja, all of that. Is this a tier 1 deck to watch out for, or does it fall a little bit short?
I mean, can we just say that like Tord is tier 1, tier S, and like that's it, and just move on? Oh, the deck, not him. Got it.
Yeah, it's Tord the player. Yeah, definitely think he's above Cloth. So
the Tord box. Where's
box.
the Tord box belong? I don't know, man. I think
1.5.
can we put any Lost Box ahead of tier 1.5 is the question. And I think the answer right now is no. There's too much Miraidon out there to put any Lost Box over tier 1.5. Is the deck itself really good? Would a really good pilot play well with it? Yes.
Of course, yeah.
Should average Joe pick it up?
Probably not.
Play it to their cup? Probably not. So that in that case, it's either tier 2 or tier 1.5. But I think with the right player, it's tier 1.
I think 1.5 is a safe place to put it.
I think so too.
I think definitely don't show up to your locals with it without some practice. Or I mean, if it's if you're trying to win it type of thing. So, all right, looking at this, any input we have? I feel like we have a little bit too much in tier 1.5. I'm kind of encouraged to move 1 or 2 down.
What would we move down? Sablezard, maybe?
Yeah, Sablezard would be the one that you'd move down if you moved anything down.
That seems like Palkia to me still.
It's one of those two. The other ones.
Yeah, it is one of those two. But like into this meta, I think I'd rather play the Palkia deck than the Sablezard deck, just because
I agree.
And I'm a Lost Box lover. You guys know this. I've been playing it since it came out. But like, you just need too much to respond to hands, and there's too much hands right now. And Palkia, if they get hands, they don't give a shit, man. They're just gonna go boom, like KO you back with 2 energy, like super simple.
And again, with Jirachi, I think since we're seeing some Jirachis get cut from lists like Gardevoir, I think that's pretty good for Sablezard. But again, still need to maybe just see a little bit more success with it.
It's still really tough because like if they don't play the Jirachi but they play the Cape, they just like put a 230 HP Cresselia in the active.
220 in the active.
Like, what are you doing? Like, you're not doing anything.
You got to go Zard, Cresselia.
Yeah. You got like Zard, Cresselia, and like to do that, you're gonna need like double gate because they're not gonna take 2 prizes with it and then get it out of the active. And they're just gonna turbo it up.
Okay, so we want to move Sablezard down 1.
Yeah, I think moving Sablezard down 1 and moving Cloth up 1 is fine by me.
All right, we almost got a little bit of a bell curve.
Yeah.
Except a lot off the list. So we're looking at our top deck. We got Guardian tier S, other tier 1 decks, Charizard EX, Fusion Mew, Miraidon EX, Snorlax Stall, and Entei Iron Valiant. Feel comfortable with that being our main 6?
Think so.
And
Good
I
with
guess there we go. And into San Antonio or other regionals, coming up. Is this our top 6 that we're seeing on the meta chart?
I would also well.
meta chart.
Meta chart. I think we see Tina up there.
Yeah, I
instead of
agree.
Snorlax,
I agree.
But otherwise, yes.
I think
so.
that's the top 6, except for Tina. You see Tina up there.
Instead of Lex, I would say.
Yeah, or Entei, right? One of those two. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see a Lost Box, or Tina, or maybe even Chen Pao kind of sneaking back up into that 6th spot
Chen
over
Pao,
something like Snorlax.
All right, so I haven't done the calculation, but I'm pretty sure, Parker, you're still behind. So this week's question is for 2 points, and you get to go first because you're behind. So which tier 2 or tier 3 deck will finish the best in day 2?
So highest placement or conversion
Highest
rate?
placement, and we're talking about San Antonio specifically.
San Antonio.
Which tier 2 or tier 3 deck will finish the highest?
I mean, at a glance, it's got to be Moon, but it's like, does someone like, I don't know, does like Azul play Sablezard and has like some genius blooming list or something? Like, in a vacuum, I'd say it has to be Moon. Someone's gonna just run hot, get like top 16 with it, and like, boom.
Locking it in?
Yep.
And that, to be clear, that's not a deck with Moon in it. That is Roaring Moon, the
Roaring
deck.
Moon, the deck.
Okay. Maddox,
Yeah,
you
I'm
get
gonna
second pick.
I'm gonna pick up a little where Parker was. I mean, I do think that just Sablezard, I do think that those 2 decks do stand out from the rest as decks that can make a deeper run, especially since we've seen Sablezard with some success already this season. Excuse me, in top 8. And again, it's Lost Box. If it can get going right, if it can go fast enough, Radiant Zarzard's still a really, really strong attacker. Mix in some Roxannes and just get the right pieces. I do think this deck could see some success. It just needs to avoid its tougher matchups out there. It needs to avoid Jirachis and again try to prey on those that are cutting Jirachi in favor of other tech cards.
Give me the cloth. I'll take the cloth.
I mean, it's going to be Zorobox with me because I'm going to make top 8 with Zorobox.
Yeah, or Goldingo with some of our local people that are loving the deck.
There we go.
So, but yeah, that's our tier list, guys. You got anything else to add before we sign off?
I think that's it.
Looks good to me.
All right. For those of you again that were listening on the podcast, we will tweet this out with our video when it goes live. And you can also come here and watch us build it and make fun of Maddox, messing up the tiers when in the middle of the video. But
wow, calling me out like that.
But we put him on the spot. We had to make him, do like technology things on the spot. But you rallied really well, like you always do. We're excited to see you guys in San Antonio. Until next time, guys. Thanks for listening.